All right, so Judgment Day is here. It's been about 6 weeks that I've been under the tutelage of a coach, and today is going to be our 20-minute power test. So basically, you start off with a warm up, then a 5-minute blowout of your legs, a little recovery time, and then a 20-minute power test. So the test just started, and basically this is going to tell me like am I going in the right direction. So a couple weeks ago, or actually before the pandemic, and after the pandemic too, doing Zwift races, my 20-minute power was at about 2:30. I think the Marietta crit, I did 2:30 for 20 minutes, and before that I was about 2:25, 2:28 for 20 minutes in my crit races. So obviously this is a structured training, and get to pick the route and all that kind of stuff. We're doing a Glendora Mountain Road, and we started off at the gate basically. It's an average of 6%, and it goes about 8 miles. We're only going to do about 3 or 4 of it on this test here. My wife's actually doing the 20-minute test with me, and you'll see in a second that yeah, she kicks my butt.
Remember, don't go out too hard.
I try to tell her there not to go out too hard, but I don't think that's an issue for her. It's an issue for me. You can see I'm going about 260, 270 watts, and of course she's just pulling away from. She does have a 35-pound advantage on me though, so no excuse. Still hurts to have your wife kick your butt up a bit. So anyway, for those of you who don't know or that may have forgotten, the coach that I'm with is Chaz Turmon from Elevate Coaching. And like I said, we've just completed our 6th week. And on week 7, it's kind of like a recovery week. It's more of an endurance week with a 20-minute test in the middle. So as you can see, my wife's just getting a little smaller and smaller, and my ego's not actually that big, so I don't really care that she can beat me. I'm actually glad to have someone that I can ride with from time to time that's fairly close to me. On the flats, she's not close at all, but on the hills, I beat her sometime, but for the most part, if she puts in a hard effort, she pulls away from anything that's longer than, maybe a mile or two. Anything shorter than that, I can usually just outpower her and kind of sprint up it, but get to a mile, a little more than a mile, eventually the weight advantage will start taking over, and her power is not much less than mine. It is as far as peak power, but not as far as like sustained power. So yeah, so she actually has a higher watt per kilo than I do. So anyway, we're going to try to settle in here. I'm trying to average about 240 to start off with. My goal or my approach to this was to kind of average around 240-ish, and maybe around the 15-minute mark, I was going to try to go harder the last 5 minutes, just to protect against going out too hard and blowing up. And for the most part, it seems like I went out a little bit perfect because I do not have much at the end when I get there. All of this though was feeling relatively easy. You can see I'm at about 250 right now. The cadence of 83. We're going about 9 miles per hour at a 5% grade. Most of the road's going to be fluctuating between 4 and 8%. Like I said, it averages 6%, and anything above 5% for me, that's where I start to lose a lot of speed. I would like to get to a point where I'm at least averaging 10 miles per hour for this entire 8-mile climb. But at the moment, I'm going baby steps. Maybe I'll shoot for 9 miles per hour first. So in a second, we should be coming up on this lady who on our ride getting here, it takes about 25 minutes, which is perfect because that's a great warm up and the time to get the blowout session in. And my wife had fallen back for a while, and we started off early, so it was dark when we started. We left the house at around 5 a.m. And next thing I know, this lady comes around the corner wearing pink and black, pink handlebar, just like my wife, and I basically started to ride with her. I thought it was my wife, and it wasn't. And of course, she looked at me like I was a little crazy at the time, but you'll see exactly why I thought. Anyway, when you're doing structured training, I think one of the things people struggle with is sticking to a program. Pretty much everyone I know that has a coach or that does any type of like online program or program that they bought, downloaded, or even something on Zwift where it's like a free program, they're trying to follow it, they really have somewhat of a lack of discipline to actually follow the program. People get bored and they don't want to do like an endurance ride, especially on Saturday. They want to go and smash with their friend on a group ride, and that's fine.
I thought you were a bear.
If you plan for that, but I think in general, the only way you know if the coaching works is if you stick to the plan. For the most part, for these 6 weeks, I've done that. I've only deviated slightly when we have like a 2-hour endurance ride. I may have stretched it to 3 or 4 even, but I stay in that endurance zone and just go at the pace that's prescribed to me from the coach. And of course, I communicate with Chaz, and he gives me feedback on if that's okay or not, or if it's going to hurt me or whatever the case is. Here's the lady, so I'll let you listen to our little exchange here that I thought was my wife for a second. She was a little surprised that we caught her.
I'm sure now you see why I thought you were my wife. Both wearing the black and pink, and doing a 20-minute test. I'm trying to pace myself, but I'm pretty much at my limit.
I'll take an after.
So yeah, I tell her I'm pretty much at my limit there, which isn't exactly true. I mean, obviously I can go harder, but being that we're only 5 minutes in or so, I wouldn't be able to go harder and sustain it. So 240 to 260 I think was about my limit at this point, and that's what I was kind of trying to stay in between. I didn't want to go really too much above 260 because I know I couldn't hold that for 20 minutes. So 240 was my goal, and 260 was my limit. So I tried to just stay in between there. Obviously, the grade changes a lot of it is just a steady 5%, 6%. It'll go up to 7 or 8, and obviously that takes a little effect on you psychologically, just with the little surges and the little pressure difference you feel in your legs. So it's just something to get used to, which is one of the reasons why I did not want to do this on the trainer. For some reason, I think it's just the consistency of cadence. For me, it's easier to do structured workouts on the trainer. I pretty much never fail them when I'm doing it on the trainer. I think that's because it's so easy to keep the same cadence. So, and if you're doing like an erg mode, even though erg mode makes it harder for you, makes you not be able to cheat, the emphasis on watts produced just makes it easier for me, because if my cadence is 90 or 100 or 80, I'm still producing the same watts when you're on the trainer in erg mode. And obviously, in real life, you're not going to produce the same watts spinning from 100 to 90 to 80 unless you're shifting gears. And on the trainer, you do not have to shift gears to do that in erg mode. And then, of course, when you're on the trainer and you're not in erg mode, your power is so spiky, it's kind of counterproductive as well. So we decided to do most of our structured workouts outside, live on the real road. And that also means as we're going up, I have to factor in the altitude change, especially with some of my pre-existing health conditions that I have. I already don't process oxygen as normal people do. So yeah, I have to be in a little bit better shape to just be on equal ground. So as you can see right now, we're at 1,725 feet, and that's I think that's actual elevation, not our elevation gain at this point. This entire climb is just about 3,000 feet of elevation gain, and it does have a small downhill section, which I think still puts you at about 3,000 feet altitude as well. But for me, anytime I get around 1,500, 2,000 feet altitude, I do notice a slight difference, and oxygen is very hard for me to process that after that. From that point on, even if I can still go further. I mean, I've been to Baldy and different places where I've been up to almost 10,000 feet cycling, and I was still able to do it. But obviously, my power and that energy just drops tremendously. So another thing that so I mentioned sticking with the plan. Sticking to the endurance rides when you're supposed to do the endurance rides, do the intervals on the days that you're going to do the intervals. Obviously, if you're going to do a little extra, I would recommend doing it on the same days that you have the intervals, just because you're fresh for your intervals. Get your intervals or your intense training out of the way, and if you want to do extra, I would say do it on those same days, because the rest is very important. And that's another thing that a lot of people have a problem with, is just resting. And from what I see, people have two problems. One is taking a rest day, instead of just taking the day off. A lot of times people get off the bike and go do something else that's equally strenuous, and they think they took a rest day because they didn't ride that day, which obviously that's not a rest day. So I think just having at least one day where you completely rest could be beneficial. And then I think the other thing that people struggle with are recovery rides, especially if your recovery ride is near or around or with other cyclists that may not be on the same plan that you're on. It's hard for you to stick to those, that zone 1 ride when other guys want to go a little faster, or you end up coming up on a group and they pass you or whatever. I have so many friends that can't stand to see someone pass them, and they want to jump on the tail of that when they're supposed to be doing a recovery ride or an endurance ride. And you definitely have to stay disciplined. You need that discipline. You need the rest. You need to have a chance for your body to adapt to the training that you've been doing. And it's good just to refresh so you can go hard the next day. It's very easy to overtrain and be burnt out, and that's one of the reasons I decided to get a coach, is because I'm pretty sure at one point I was definitely overtraining, thinking I needed to do more. My legs were always dead. No matter how hard I was able to go, they just always felt dead. And including at work, just simple tasks, bend down, pick up a box or something. I felt like I needed to rest for 10 minutes after one squat. So, and it hurt me. It hurt my speed, it hurt my power. The highest 20-minute test that I had was in 2018, was 305 watts. And I am so weak now that I even question a lot of my numbers from 2018. However, they weren't one-off numbers. My top 5 20-minute tests were in between 279 and the 305. And they're all from 2018. So if it was a one-time thing, I could say, oh, my power meter was off or something to that effect. But I was using a quart power meter at the time. They're pretty much top of the line. I did switch to stages. However, I had already lost my power before switching to stages. I switched to stages when I got a new bike, and about the last 5-6 months before that time, I was already going down in power. I was to the point where, I was holding 240, 230, just constantly going down to where I went all the way down to I was doing 216 for a 20-minute power. And then over these last couple of months, I built it back up to where I was at 225. And at Twitter Marietta, I held 230 for that time. And then I started, training with Chaz. And today's the day that we'll see from above that 230 mark. And so far, I'm doing pretty good. I don't know exactly how many minutes we're in to the test here. I would guess we're probably about 12 minutes in. And I think from this point on is where I really started to struggle a little bit. Maybe the last 8 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes was really tough. Not only are we going higher and higher, air is getting a little bit thinner. We're just under 2,000 feet right now, which I understand is not high altitude, but it is for me. The average person, they struggle too much at 2,000 feet, maybe 4,000 feet or so, they probably really start to notice. But for me, I typically notice somewhere around the 2,000 foot mark. And I still have good power here, as you can see, 290, 280. It's a little higher than I want to go. My cadence is low also for me at the moment. And I'd like to get it back up to around the 80 mark or so. So one thing that I know I need to work on, or I believe I need to work on, is possibly my breathing. I'm panting pretty hard right now, and during the ride, I thought I was breathing okay. I thought I was in my yoga zen mode, and it's more like I was in the dog thirsting for water mode. So, I'm drinking out of a bowl right now, but something to work on. I'm not sure how much it'll help, but it may help just with the psychological aspect of feeling tired. Because I know psychologically, whenever my breathing gets really out of control, there's this sense of urgency of like you're training so hard, and you take a deep breath and everything gets easier. And like I said, maybe that's just a mental thing, but it's definitely something that I need to work on. Maybe even try some meditation or something, I'm not sure. I know people have talked about yoga has helped them, and just deep breathing while holding positions and things like that. I'm willing to try most things. Obviously, I need to fit them into my schedule and stuff like that, but I do get to a point here where I am literally it's not easy for me to listen to. We do have a couple minutes left here in the test. I'm not exactly sure how many. Still doing pretty good. A little bit under that 240 watt mark that I wanted to hold. And honestly, with just a couple minutes left, I'm not putting in the type of push that I wanted to. I'm doing a little weaving on the road. It's hard to get holding the watts now. Might have weaved because of that cartoon. Either way, I wouldn't be so far to the left if I wasn't as tired as I am. It looks like I'm barely holding 200 watts now, so my cadence is down to 71, which is always an indication for me that continue to set in. Those legs want to stop. Yeah, you can hear that breathing now. I'm definitely watching. And honestly, from this part here, it's just gutted out time. Just keep pressing on the pedals. Losing a lot of watts right now, going down to 180. As physical as it is, a large part of it is psychological as well. gotta just get yourself to muster out those last watts all the way through the timer. And it's so hard to listen to. So yeah, you can really tell that I'm struggling here. It's hard to hold over 200 watts on the air. Trying to get it back up and muster out something for this last minute or so. Yeah, that's it. It looks like the test is over, and honestly, to my surprise, once I looked at the results, it was actually pretty good. I wanted a little more, but I actually averaged exactly 240 watts for the 20 minutes. And that's a 10 watt bump since I did Tour de Marietta, which is basically the last time that I even went hard for 20 minutes. And to me, that's pretty significant. 6 weeks of training, 10 watt bump in your 20-minute power. I'm hoping I can continue that, but who knows? We'll see.